second day. David Scaife is the local member for Coburn. He has replaced by the election of the previous minister, Fran Logan. David is interesting background. There's not a lot written about you yet, so I'm a bit, but David was, there's a couple of really amazing things that we have. First of all, we have someone that's strongly committed to the environment, environmental convener of many things within the Labour Party, very strongly committed to the environment. Raised and educated, I should say, at Australian, went on to get a law degree, represented a number of community groups in legal fraternity, has now come back to the political world, and we're delighted to have David. He's acting Speaker of the House since 2021. But more importantly, David is committed to lifelong learning. And this is one of our key objectives, public education and lifelong learning. So here we have a local member that's committed to the environment, that's committed to lifelong learning, and indeed it's my great privilege to introduce David and ask him to open day 2. Thank you. Thank you very much, Tom. Could I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we're meeting, acknowledge that we're meeting on Wajak Noongar Budja, and also acknowledge Libby and all other Aboriginal people in the room. And thank you so much, Libby, for that. Welcome to country. I'd also like to acknowledge His Worship the Mayor, Logan K. Howard, JP, Mayor of the City of Coburn, and also Tom Perigo, the Chair of the Board of the Wetlands Centre here. It's a great privilege for me as the new member for Coburn to launch the second day of your conference. From speaking with Tom and Bart, it sounds like there was a lot to think about out of yesterday's session, and I hope that you all get as much out of today as well. One of the reasons that I ran for Parliament is because I truly believe in the power of collective action. I truly believe in the power of communities working together to create positive change. And I've only been in Parliament for 12 months now, but that idealism hasn't been ground out of me just yet. And I truly believe that when we work in partnerships, we can get the best outcomes. And given that partnership is the theme, one of today's themes of this conference, I wanted to speak about the power of partnership. Some of you would have heard yesterday from Dr. Felicity Bastow about the campaign to stop Row 8 and to save the WA Wetlands. And those familiar with the campaign, which is many of us in this room, will know that that campaign was successful because it was built on partnerships. It was a campaign that was built on partnerships between conservationists, scientists, members of this centre who provided that critical knowledge and passion about protecting our wetlands. It involved local traditional owners who know the value of this land better than anyone possibly could. It included community groups like Rethink the Link that worked together to show what a flawed planning approach Row 8 and 9 actually were. And it involved working with local politicians. The City of Coburn, for example, took a position against Row 8 as far back as 2001 and carried that opposition forward for many years. And I know that many of my colleagues, Simone McGurk, Lisa O'Malley, Josh Wilson, stood side by side with the community during the many protests. It also involved artists and performers. We had events like Live at the Wetlands to bring the community together and demonstrate their support for the WA Wetlands. And somewhere along the way, you even allowed people like me, lawyers, to help out with the campaign as well. And what's so critical about that is that is the sign of a good campaign. Partnerships, people working together. And the reason that's important is because partnerships bring expertise and knowledge. It brings a diversity of skills and opinions to the table. And it also makes a campaign, it makes any community more resilient in the face of setbacks, because you always have other people, other supporters, other ideas to fall back on. And let's be honest, the anti-Row 8 campaign faced many setbacks. We shouldn't forget that, despite the fact that the campaign was ultimately successful. There were failed legal challenges along the way, successive refusal by governments to listen to the advice and to the science and to the views of the local community. And then, of course, we had the completely arrogant action of the Barnett Liberal government at the end of their term in actually proceeding with bulldozing part of the wetlands when a state election was just a few weeks away. So successive failures there. But of course, every time that campaign picked themselves up and kept on going. They changed tactics. They went back to the community. They ran more stalls at more events to raise more awareness of the issue. They encouraged activists to run for council and to run for parliament and to bring that political voice to the table as well. And ultimately, people lied down in front of the bulldozers to stop them from making progress in what they were doing until that state election could happen and until the McGowan Labor government could put a halt to that project completely. And so obviously that campaign culminated in the decision by the McGowan government to halt that project, but also to then designate the Beelia wetlands as an A-class reserve, and then later last year to finally delete Row 8 and Row 9, well, not Row 9 yet, but we're getting there, Row 8 Road Reserve from the Metropolitan Region scheme. That's a huge victory for that campaign, and it's a triumph for the environment and the community working together to overcome what was really an almost ideological commitment to a flawed planning approach for our area. And I want you to use today's conference to celebrate that victory, but also look to the road ahead, and I hope you excuse the pun there. I know that many in this room have been involved in the work that has already been happening to rehabilitate the Row 8 corridor led by the City of Cockburn. I know that there are members of this centre that are very closely involved in leading those efforts, and that work will continue. And there are also significant investments happening in the Beelia wetlands, things like the investments from the City of Cockburn in this very facility, and also the investments from the state government in things like a new boardwalk for the Beelia wetlands in this region to improve the amenity of it for people visiting the area. But we cannot be complacent and think that the work is always done, both for the Beelia wetlands here and also for wetlands more generally in WA. And there might be people in this room who recall the fight against the Fremantle Eastern Bypass. And those who were involved in that will know that that was fought over many decades. And in fact, there were a number of occasions when successive changes of governments inserted and deleted the FEB from the Metropolitan Region scheme. So just because Row 8 has been deleted now doesn't mean that it can't be reinserted under a future government where there is a change of government. And the truth is that the Liberal Party is still talking up the project, and so we have to be mindful about the need to hang on to the progress that has already been made. We have to expand the efforts of these groups to protecting and enhancing all of our wetlands around Perth and Western Australia. I don't need to tell this room that we've obviously lost more than 80%, perhaps as much as 90% of the wetlands on the Swan Coastal Plain since 1829. And that is a track record that is very sad, but one that we have to own and we have to do better for the future. We have to get better at the science of managing wetlands. And I know that having looked at the program, that this morning's sessions will help to do just that. I saw particularly the presentation that's on the agenda from Dr. Belinda Robertson on new methods for creating drought refuges for freshwater species. Seems particularly pertinent to me as we have to face the increasing challenges of climate change. We also have to tell better stories in our communities about our wetlands and about their importance. And I'm sure that Drew Thornton's presentation on storing Lake Munga and its ecological values will provide ideas that can be used across the state in that respect. And we also have to pass on the knowledge that is in this room
knowledge about the campaigns and the hard-fought victories, but also knowledge about the science and the importance of protecting our wetlands to future generations. And we have to teach them about the battles of the past. And that's how I know that this afternoon's sessions on connecting with schools are a critical part of the way forward. I hope that this conference for all of you is a shot in the arm. I hope you come out of this reinvigorated, inspired, reconnected. I hope that you use it to learn new things, but also to strengthen or reconnect those relationships, those partnerships, because it's only by working together that we can make and protect the type of lasting change that we've achieved in the WA wetland and enhance the environment and all of our wetlands for future generations.
Wow, that was very good. David, down below where we have under the Wetlands Action, we have 4 areas: leadership, reconciliation, sustainability, and partnerships. These, in a way, are our 4 core objectives of the Wetlands Center. Yesterday, we talked about the leadership. We looked for people for leadership, as we do today. But as I mentioned, there's a big difference between leaders and leadership. Your speech was very inspiring, and in effect, it provided leadership, which is rare, and I hope you don't lose that during your parliamentary career, because it was very good, and thank you very much for that. It was certainly got a jolt in the arm for myself.